Welcome back to Bus Brothers. This is episode 4 in the Bus Basics series. I'm still Tom, and this time round we are going to look at your camper conversion. If the previous videos have been useful to you and you've enjoyed them, thank you for your support so far. If you can like, share, subscribe, tell a friend, tell your mum, it always helps. By now, we're going to work on the theory that you've not only found the van that you wanted, you've made it look as you want on the outside, and the inside is at a point where it's ready to go. So you've done your ply lining, your carpet, your sound insulation, your deadening, and you've run your electrical cables. Next step is the camper conversion itself. Now, the idea of this video, as with all the others, is to give you a snippet, simplified version of all the information you need to know. This isn't a do-it-all. This isn't a how to do it. This isn't an encyclopedia. This is a starting point to give you the answers to start your own research. It's boring if I give you everything. Go out there, learn what you need to do. But ultimately, as we said in video 1, the purpose of these videos is to give you the basics so that you don't have to go on Facebook and get called. So the aim of this is to help you understand the different types of camper conversions and to give you a breakdown of what the different parts are. Try and cut out some of the jargon, try and help you understand what it is you're looking at. Ultimately, all of these are subjective. You need to decide what you want from your van, and then from there, we can work from that. So first things first is your layouts. They go from relatively straightforward to some very weird and wacky ones with pulleys and all sorts. Ultimately, there's 2 main versions out there, which we will cover off. Number 1 is the U-shaped interior. This, as it says, is a U-shape, so the back of the van is a U of seating. What you tend to find is you've got storage underneath, or if you've got cooking facilities in there, they're either pull out at the back or the front, or there's an extra set of cupboards mounted against the back of the front seats. This tends to be more popular on long wheelbase because, as you know, if you watched episode 1, which if you didn't, why didn't you, is 400mm longer. So long wheelbase gives that little bit more flexibility. Pros on a U-shape, it can be more sociable. You can have all your friends sat round.
With friends, I like to have fun.
And you can build a full-size sleeping platform. Downside, there wasn't until very recently anyone that offered the ability to carry passengers on them. I believe that has changed now, but I've not actually seen it done. Second option is the traditional side kitchen, which a lot of people do. I've got it in this one. VW do it in the California. Essentially, all of your cupboards, bits and pieces are down one side, and then you've got a 3/4 width rock and roll bed next to it. We'll get on to what rock and roll beds are in a minute. Pros of a traditional side kitchen, it gives you a little bit more room to work around, gives you the height of a worktop, which you don't get in a U-shape, gives you a little bit more floor space. Downside, you can't sit a family of 4 around a table, which I've seen done in a U-shape. So there are limitations on both, but ultimately you've got to choose what works best for you. Whilst we're talking about kitchen cabinets, they vary, the same as everything. You can go on eBay and pay 250 quid for an MDF kit, which you can, but you shouldn't. So the only advantage of it is that it's cheap. MDF, if you're new to this sort of stuff, is made up of essentially sawdust mixed with glue that's then compressed. It acts like a sponge. Any moisture it gets, it will suck it up, and eventually you get that blown MDF where the front and the back expand out. Camper vans, you get a lot of moisture in them if you use them. Moisture isn't your friend, so you don't want something that holds on to it. Second of all, MDF is really heavy. These vans have an absolute maximum weight limit by law. If you use all your weight limit up on MDF kitchen, you're going to have to compromise somewhere else, and there are better options out there. Next up is ply, which, again, we'll break it down, is layers of wood going that way, and then that way, and then that way, and then that way, and then that way, and that way. Very, very strong material, and you can get finished ply, which gives you a nice laminated finish on the top. We're going to skip on to the next one because it shares the same information but is more suitable for what we're doing. Lightweight ply is what you want. Not only is it light, which is obviously in the name, it's strong, it's durable, and you can get it in 1,000,001 colours. As you've probably already worked out by now with T5s, they can be expensive. Parts are expensive when you get what you pay for. In my mind, why wouldn't you do a lightweight kitchen? It gives you the ability to use your material weight elsewhere. Now, kitchens vary in style and price, depending on obviously the quality of the job, the builtness of it, whether you buy it flat pack or whether it comes pre-made, and then what options you want. You can have all sorts of different things on these kitchens. Again, you need to figure out what works for you, and you need to choose your own way of doing it. One thing I would say is, yes, you can have weird and wonderful colours, but sometimes less is more. Don't confuse your look by just chucking all sorts at it. With kitchens, you'll see a couple of things banded around. So you'll see edge banding, which is the edging material applied to it. Obviously, ply is exposed on the end. What they do is they route the groove into it, and then there's a hammer-on plastic trim that gives you the edge that you need. Makes it nice and tidy, keeps it durable. You'll see things mentioned about self-locking cabinets. If you haven't got self-locking cabinets, the doors will open and your cutlery will murder you when you're going around about. And then you've got tambour doors, which are roller doors. They roll up into themselves, so you haven't got to have an opener. So when you've got restricted space, like against a bed, they're quite useful. They can rattle if they're not fitted properly, but if you know what you're doing and you go to the right person, you should be all right. Now, a kitchen without appliances is just cupboards. And in the world of camper vans, everyone seems to do very similar. So first things first is what's called a SMEV. Now, SMEV is a brand, but when you see a SMEV referred to in one of these, it tends to be the same thing. And it's a single appliance that sits into your worktop with two glass lids on it. One side has a sink, other side has a dual burner gas setup, which we'll get back to gas in a minute. So the sink isn't a traditional tap. It looks like a tap, but it's actually got an electrical micro switch in it. Obviously, there's no water pressure in a standard van. So you have a pump in your tank. The tap tells the pump to turn on, pumps the water through, job done. Obviously, then to get rid of your wastewater, you connect your waste to another cylinder or container, which is then called grey waste, and you can then just get rid of it as you need to. One thing worth remembering with water is it moves. It's always best to try and secure your containers down, whichever way you do it. There are other options. You can do a induction hob. However, the startup power that these need isn't really suitable for a van. There are some slightly lower power ones out there, but they're really, really expensive. So the same as everyone going for a SMEV, when it comes to fridges, people tend to do the same thing. You can use a cool box. You can monkey any old fridge in if you really want to, but general consensus is go with a Waco, and I think it's a CRX50 is the popular model, or a CX50. It's small, it's lightweight, it's reliable, and more importantly, it is really, really, really energy efficient. What you have to remember is, unless you're plugged in to the mains, your leisure battery provides all of your power for your van. If you've got a fridge that is sucking the life out of it, it's going to run out of power quickly, and then your food's going to go off. The other advantage with Wacos is some of them come with the option to put like a divider in, so you can have a freezer section, which, let's be honest, who doesn't want to go to the beach and have a beer when they've finished, or an ice cream?
Yeah, boy.
The downside of a Waco is, as with everything that's good, they're not cheap. They're about 500 quid, but you get what you pay for. And if you're looking at buying a van and it hasn't got a Waco, I would worry where people have cut costs, because there isn't really any other options out there. Now, before we move on, let's go back to gas. Most vans use the camping gas system, which is the little blue bottles, essentially the same as the Calagas system that you use to run your barbecue. So you pay a rental fee, get your bottle, use it, refill it. It's the most popular one in the UK, the most popular one in Europe, and why would you use something that's more difficult to use? One thing with gas can kill you. Don't with gas. Gas is heavier than air. So if you have a gas bottle that leaks, or a hob that leaks if you've left it turned on, the gas will fall to the bottom of the van. So your air is at the bottom, at the top, gas is at the bottom. If you don't put a dropout vent in the bottom of your van so that your gas, if you have a gas leak, can escape, your van will fill with gas and then you'll die. Damn! So why wouldn't you do it? Second up, you can use a gas locker, which, same thing, still got a dropout vent in the bottom, but this time your actual cylinder is secured in an airtight box. Double safe. If If you want to be triple safe, you can run a carbon monoxide or a gas alarm. They do different versions, some of them do both. They tend to be more popular if you're doing a lot of cooking indoors, if you haven't got windows open, etc., etc. But do you really want to put a price on safety? So talking about safety, next thing up is beds. So there's two options. You can have a fixed bed, which when the back of your van is a whole bed, in which case there's no point you watching this, because there ain't nothing you can do. Or you get what's called a rock and roll bed. Why it's called a rock and roll bed, I don't know. Google couldn't tell me either. But it is what it is. Essentially, a rock and roll bed is a seat that by either poking or prodding or pushing or pulling on buttons or levers transforms into a bed. I'll put a clip in here of my one in my red one, which if you watched the van tour you would have seen. But a rock and roll bed gives you the ability to carry passengers if you want to, and have a bed or have somewhere to sit. Now, not all rock and roll beds are created equally. You will find advertised out there at the cheaper end of the market, non-crash tested, which is fine for sitting on, it's fine for sleeping on, but the person who has built that has not intended you to carry passengers on it. Why, in some of these instances, do these companies provide seatbelts on them is another question. For me, I'll put my kids in mine, I'll take family and friends in it. Why would you want to put them on something that isn't safe? Spend a bit more, get a crash tested bed or an M1 pool tested. Essentially means that somebody that knows what they're doing, an engineer or a scientist or a very clever person, has looked at the materials it's made with, because not all steel is equal. They've looked at the material, they've looked at the welding, they've looked at the design, they've looked at how it mounts into the van, they've looked at how it spreads its weight, and they say it's safe. If you're looking at a conversion that somebody else has done, have a look at how that seat is mounted. There are people out there that will mount a non-crash tested seat with seat belts to the floor of the van, to the ply floor, which is only held down with glue, with wood screws. Now,
Got your cowboy hat. We got our Marlboro. We got your Copenhagen. And best of all, we got our cowboy boots.
they are not going to stop you in an accident. All you're going to do is die. So rock and roll beds come in two widths. They do a full width, which is the full width of the van, unsurprisingly, and a 3/4 width, which if you've got a side kitchen, you will need to have. They come in at anywhere between 1 metre and 1100, which is a single bed plus a little bit more. It's doable if you like your partner. If not, get a pop top. Big names in seats to look for are Rib, Altair, Smart Beds, Rusty Lee, Titan. There's lots out there. Do your research. Budget-wise, you're probably looking anywhere between 1,000 and 1,500 quid for a bare seat, which sounds a lot, but again, choose your money, spend it wisely. That's your essentials inside your van. There's other bits you can do, which we'll run through very quickly now. You can change the steering wheel from the commercial one that's in there. Sometimes they're quite worn, to something else. You can get some that bolt in. You can get some like these that don't bolt in, but look cool. You can change your seats. You can take the double seat out if you've got a double seat in your passenger side and put a single in. VW Transporter single seat are very, very expensive. The captain seats, which have the arms that come down, one of those for a passenger side, for a genuine passenger side VW captain seat, you're looking about 800 quid. For me, it always makes more sense to buy something else. I've got a couple of Passat seats to go in one of my vans. Essentially, just find another single base, adapt some adapter plates, put your seats in, gives you your option. Another thing you can do is put a swivel on. So your front passenger seat, whether it's a single or a double, you can do it on both. You can get a system of plates that bolt in that you can then unbolt it and rotate it round so it faces backwards. For me, it was an absolute must. There's 4 of us, so you can have 4 people in the back of the van looking at each other. And if you've got kids, it's a good way for them to get in and out of your pop top without having a ladder. So another thing you can do to make it your own is you can change the seat belts, different colours. You can do a retrim. So if you buy a rock and roll bed that's come pre-trimmed, you can buy covers to go on your front seats. They vary between cheap and nasty and really quite expensive. Or you can have a proper retrim where you can get someone to trim your front seats to match your rock and roll bed. You can get someone to trim your rock and roll bed to match your front seats, or you can go wild. You can choose any material, any colour, any stitching. Retrims can be very, very expensive. They can also be very, very cheap. There is a business out there who I won't name, but rhymes with. Their retrims are dog. If you're not going to take the time and effort to line up your pattern so that it's equal, what message does that send? My one, which again, if you watch the van tour on the red van, it was done by Mid-England Retrims, and that came in at relatively sensible money. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was about 1,500 quid. But I think that was a good investment. It really, really brings the inside of the van out and stops it being another van. Only other thing worth mentioning is lighting. These vans run on a 12-volt system. What you'll find is a lot of LEDs that you see, whether they're sold as 240 volt or 12 volt or whatever, most of them run on 12 volt. If it's 240, there's normally a transformer. You can do some really cool LED lighting. You can do the halo roof if you haven't got a pop top. You can do spotlights, you can do color changing LEDs, you can do all sorts. Be creative, be clever, but don't go over the top. So that's about it. One thing I would say, as I've said all the way through, is it is your van. Don't just do what everyone else has done. Everyone's an individual, and with the amount of product on the market, you can pretty much do what you want with these. When you start out, get an idea of where you want to end up. Know your destination before you start your journey. There's lots of companies out there that have got nice shiny trinkets that they will tell you is exactly what you need to do what you want. Reality is 9 times out of 10, it isn't. It's profiteering. Once you know what you want, you will know what's right for you. Look around. There's options out there for second-hand stuff. There's always deals to be had. It's a very competitive marketplace. So that's that. Bus Basics is done. I can't think of anything else that we need to cover. If you can, drop a comment down below. Going forwards, we're going to try and get out and get some more real-life van tours for you, because I think it's interesting to see how different people do different things. And there might be some other stuff on the horizon that I'm working on in the background. But again, thank you for your support. If you can like, share, subscribe, tell everyone, much appreciated. Thank you.